Lee Min-ho was the type of man who could cause a small traffic jam just by walking down the street. He didn't mean to. It was just that his height, easy smile, and the fact that he was Lee Min-ho made strangers pause mid-step, sometimes mid-chew, to watch him pass. Moon Jae-young, on the other hand, was a quiet storm. Off camera, she carried herself like someone who knew the art of listening, but on screen she could be as playful, fiery, or heartbreaking as the script demanded. Before they met, they had crossed paths in the way celebrities often do. Award shows, after parties, occasional overlapping commercials. Polite bows, friendly hello-s, nothing that would make tabloid headlines. But there was something, just something, in the way they remembered each other's names without effort. The real story began in the most unglamorous place possible, a tiny coffee shop in Itaewon, one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Min-ho had ducked in, baseball cap low, jacket zipped, escaping the drizzle. He was halfway through his Americano when he noticed someone in the corner with a script open, a pen tapping against her lips. It was Moon Jae-young. She didn't notice him at first, too busy mumbling lines to herself. When she finally looked up, recognition flashed in her eyes. Not the squeal fan kind, but the, "Oh, you're here?" kind. "I didn't know you liked coffee here," she said. "I didn't know you practiced scripts in public," he replied. And just like that, the conversation started. They talked about terrible traffic, unpredictable weather, and the fact that the shop's cheesecake was criminally underrated. Neither of them left with the intention of calling the other. But the following week, they both found themselves back at the same coffee shop. Coincidence? Maybe. Min-ho wasn't the type to rush. He had seen too many high-profile relationships explode under public scrutiny. Jae-young wasn't the type to play games. If she liked someone, she liked them. Their friendship grew like ivy, quietly, steadily, wrapping around their lives without them realizing. They shared playlists. They sent memes at odd hours. They started recommending books to each other, though Min-ho cheated and read summaries online sometimes, just to keep up. The first real moment came during a late-night walk after shoot. They were both tired, carrying takeout boxes, when Min-ho asked, "Do you ever get tired of everyone watching?" Jae-young thought for a moment before answering, "Sometimes. But it's nice when someone watches because they want to, not because they have to." It wasn't a confession, but it was close enough to make both of them walk a little slower. Before they became Lee Min-ho and Moon Jae-young, the couple whispered about in fan forums, they were simply two people trying to navigate the chaos of their careers. Min-ho was fresh from an international drama success, juggling brand deals and offers from abroad. Jae-young was picking scripts with care, turning down projects that didn't challenge her. They kept bumping into each other at industry events. One night, after a charity gala, Min-ho offered her a ride home. She refused twice before giving in, then spent the entire ride teasing him about the playlist in his car. "Who still listens to early 2000s ballads?" she laughed. "People with taste," he shot back. It was banter, but it was also a blueprint for how they fit, easy, unforced, like a song you didn't know you loved until it got stuck in your head. It wasn't a grand gesture. There were no fireworks, no dramatic "will you be mine" moment. One evening, after a long day of filming, they ended up back at the coffee shop where they first met. It was closing time, and the owner had given them each a free slice of cheesecake. Min-ho looked at her across the table and said, "You know, I think this is my favorite part of the week." Jae-young smiled, not breaking eye contact. "Me too." That was it. No announcement, no press release, just two people deciding, silently but firmly, to start walking in the same direction. If you've ever seen a Kdrama couple try to keep things private, you know it's a comedy in itself. They tried. Oh, they tried. Coordinated arrival times. Separate entrances. Pretending to talk to different people at group dinners. But one fateful day, a sharp-eyed fan noticed matching bracelets in two separate Instagram posts. The internet did what it does best, connected dots that weren't even close together. A week later, blurry photos surfaced of them in a bookstore, Min-ho holding a bag of snacks, Jae-young wearing a baseball cap. The news broke. Headlines screamed. Fan theories multiplied. Their agencies released the classic "they are close colleagues" statement, which convinced exactly no one. Once the secret was out, they decided there was no point in hiding. They began attending small gatherings together, sometimes even posting playful hints online. They weren't over the top, no constant couple selfies, no oversharing, but there was a certain glow about them when they were together. Fans noticed how Minho laughed more freely, how Jae-young seemed more relaxed during interviews. The best part? They still went to that little coffee shop in Itaewon, sometimes sharing a table by the window, sometimes taking their drinks to go for a long walk. Of course, it wasn't all cheesecake and strolls. Public relationships meant public opinions. Some fans didn't approve. Some magazines twisted innocent moments into drama. There were weeks when they barely saw each other because of filming schedules on opposite sides of the world. But they learned to work through it. Late-night video calls became their lifeline. Surprise visits when schedules allowed became their joy. And they had a rule: never go to bed angry, even if it meant staying up until sunrise to talk things out. Years later, they're still together. Still laughing over cheesecake. Still arguing about playlists. Still teasing each other about who makes the better coffee. It's Jae-young, though Minho insists otherwise. They've become a quiet kind of power couple, not the flashy, headline-chasing type, but the kind that inspires fans to believe in slow, steady love. And every now and then, when someone asks them how they met, they just smile and say, "It started with coffee." Lee Min-ho didn't set out to be the kind of man whose very presence could stop time, but it happened anyway. 6 feet 2 inches of quiet charisma, a smile that could sell anything from cologne to romantic ideals, and a face that seemed like it was drawn in secret by the gods themselves. He was at the top of his game. International dramas, fan meetings sold out in minutes, brand endorsements piling up. Moon Jae-young, meanwhile, was carving out her own lane. Born in Germany but raised in Korea, she had the kind of elegance that made people think she belonged in a 19th century oil painting, until she opened her mouth and cracked a joke sharp enough to break the frame. She was selective with her roles, determined to be known for her acting rather than her beauty. They were in the same world, orbiting the same events, but their paths had never collided in a meaningful way. Award shows? Yes. Red carpets? Occasionally. Friendly nods? Of course. But nothing personal. And then came the rain. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Itaewon, the kind of drizzly, gray day when even traffic noise feels quieter. Minho had ducked into a tiny coffee shop to escape the weather, the kind of place with chipped mugs and a menu written in chalk. Baseball cap low, hood up, Americano in hand. He was halfway through a paragraph in a book he pretended to understand when someone walked in, shaking rain from her coat. Moon Jae-young. She didn't spot him at first. Her focus was on the script in her hand, lips moving as she muttered lines under her breath. She settled into a corner table, hair falling over her face as she tapped her pen against the paper. When she finally looked up, her eyes met his. A flash of recognition. Not surprise, but the warm familiarity of, "Oh, you're here? I didn't know you liked coffee here," she said, slipping off her coat. "I didn't know you practiced scripts in public," he replied, amused. And just like that, a conversation began. About the weather, the terrible Seoul traffic, and the shop's criminally underrated cheesecake. They didn't exchange numbers that day. But a week later, they both happened to be back in the same spot. Coincidence? Maybe. Friendship came first. It started with casual greetings at the coffee shop, then occasional messages. "Read that book yet?" Halfway. The main character's hopeless. They swapped music playlists. Minho sent her 2000s ballads, Jae-young countered with indie Korean bands he'd never heard of. They recommended movies to each other, debated over whether pineapple belonged on pizza. It did, according to her. He strongly disagreed. It was an easy rhythm. No big romantic gestures, no forced intimacy. Just a slow, steady warmth creeping into their days. One night after a long shoot, they ended up walking side by side along the Han River, takeout boxes in hand. "Do you ever get tired of everyone watching?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said after a pause. "But it's nice when someone watches because they want to, not because they have to." It wasn't a confession, but it lingered in the air between them. Before they became the couple whispered about in fan forums, their careers were a balancing act. Minho is fresh off a massive drama success, with offers pouring in from overseas. Jaeyoung was turning down safe roles in favor of challenging scripts. Both had packed schedules, but somehow, they kept finding time for each other. After an awards ceremony one evening, Minho offered her a ride home. She refused twice before finally agreeing, then spent the drive teasing him about the playlist in his car. Who still listens to early 2000s ballads? She laughed. People with taste, he countered. And somewhere between the laughter and the streetlights, something shifted. It wasn't fireworks. No dramatic confession under the rain. One evening, they were back at the coffee shop where it all began. The owner, recognizing them as the cheesecake couple, gave them a free slice. They sat there, forks clinking against plates, until Minho said quietly, "This is my favorite part of the week." Jaeyoung looked at him, eyes steady. "Me too." No need for labels, no grand declarations. Just an unspoken decision to start walking the same path. Keeping things private in the Korean entertainment industry was like trying to hide the moon. They tried, arriving separately at events, timing their coffee shop visits, avoiding overly personal Instagram posts. But fans notice everything. It started when someone spotted matching bracelets in separate posts. Then came blurry photos of them in a bookstore, Minho holding a bag of snacks, Jaeyoung in a baseball cap. The rumors exploded online. Their agencies issued the standard, "They are close colleagues" statement, which fooled exactly no one. Once the secret was out, they stopped pretending. They attended small gatherings together. Sometimes Jaeyoung would appear at Minho's fan meetings in the back row, disguised in a cap. Other times, he'd bring her lunch on set during her shoots. Fans noticed the changes, how Minho laughed more in interviews, how Jaeyoung's eyes softened when someone mentioned him. They still went to their coffee shop, though now they often took their drinks to go, walking side by side through quiet streets. Love in the public eye isn't all warm coffee and shared playlists. Some fans disapproved, claiming they didn't match. Gossip columns twisted harmless moments into scandalous headlines. And their schedules, sometimes they went weeks without seeing each other. They had fights. Stupid ones, about missed calls or misunderstandings, and bigger ones about trust and space. But they had a rule: never go to bed angry, no matter how late they had to stay up talking. In their third year together, Minho left for a 3-month shoot overseas. It was the longest they had been apart. Video calls became lifelines. Care packages traveled back and forth, snacks, letters, inside jokes scribbled on sticky notes. When he returned, she was waiting at the airport, baseball cap pulled low, coffee in hand. No words were needed. Just a hug that lasted long enough for both of them to feel home again. They're still together. They still argue about music. Still disagree about pineapple on pizza. Still make time for cheesecake at their coffee shop. They're not flashy, no constant selfies, no public declarations, but they've become something rare. A couple whose love feels lived in. Comfortable, warm, and steady. When asked how they met, they just smile. It started with coffee, they say.